Good morning, children. Welcome to our recorded session of physics. We will continue chapter 13 sound. In today's class, we will learn about how do sounds differ. That means what are the characteristics of sounds that makes them different from each other. Okay. Up till now, we have learned about the production of sound through the vibrating bodies. How do the vibrating bodies vibrate and produce sound? Then we have learnt about the different types of vibrations, that is infrasonic, sonic and ultrasonic vibrations. Then we had learnt about the uses of ultrasonic vibrations. Then after that we had also learnt about the propagation of sound. How can sound propagate? Okay, and the conditions required for the propagation of sound. All this we have learnt till the previous class in the previous video. In today's video we will learn about how can we differentiate between the sounds. For example, the sound made by different keyboards, different musical instruments. How can we distinguish between various kinds of sounds made at the same time? Okay, so basically there are two characteristics of sound. First is loudness, how loud a sound is, how intense a sound is, or how feeble it is. That means how low it is or how loud it is. That simply means the volume of a sound. You increase the volume and you decrease the volume of your music system. The same is the loudness. Okay. The second characteristic is pitch. That is the sharpness or shrillness of a sound. So loudness means the intensity or how strong the sound is. How can we increase the volume and decrease the volume? And pitch means the sharpness or shrillness of a sound, how sharp it is. Okay, in today's class, children, we will concentrate on the first one, that is loudness of a sound. Loudness is also called as intensity of a sound, how intense it is. That means if somebody is shouting using more energy, or if somebody is whispering, speaking very slowly. So in the first case you are able to hear a very loud sound because he was shouting. In the second case it is difficult for you to hear because it is very low. Alright, so now we will look at loudness. What is loudness? Loudness is the characteristic of a sound which distinguishes between a feeble and a loud sound. Although both of them are having the same frequency, both are same ways they are sharp, right? They can be very sharp, they can be very dull, but they can be loud or they can be feeble. Okay, so for example, you increase up like for example 3 or 4 musical instruments are playing. One is guitar, the sharpness is different. One is drums, the sharpness is different. Here it is very dull as compared to the sharp sound of a flute, right? But if you increase the volume of a music system, the automatically the sound becomes loud, and if you decrease the volume, the sound becomes feeble. Although both of them were different in frequency, they might be different, they might be same in frequency, but if you increase the volume, the loudness increases. If you decrease the volume, the loudness decreases. The sound becomes feeble. Okay, for example, there's a guitar and a sitar playing. Okay, both are having the same frequency, but what will happen, even if they are having the same frequency, the loudness can differ. Like a baby girl is shouting from one corner of the room, it is still the same sharpness there. Another girl is crying from the another corner, but the first girl was very near to you, so you are able to hear a louder shriek there because the loudness increases. In the second case, although the frequency was the same, the sharpness of both the shrieks were the same, but you are able to hear a feeble sound because distance between you and that child was different, it was larger. Is it clear? So loudness can be increased, can be decreased, although frequency can remain the same, which means that sharpness can be the same, but loudness can differ. Okay, and the unit of loudness is decibel. We measure loudness in decibel. Understood, all of you? Now we come to what is amplitude. How is it related to loudness? Now in previous classes we have learnt about the various terms related to loudness. One of them was amplitude. What is amplitude? Amplitude, as you all know, is the maximum displacement of a vibrating body from its mean position. Now as we are talking about vibrating bodies and vibrations, we will also talk about the sound waves. Okay, as I told you. Now what is the amplitude here? If you can see in this wave, the point where it is meeting the line is the mean position, and the highest point is the extreme position. Is it clear? And the distance between the mean and the extreme position is the amplitude. Understood all of you? The distance between the mean and the extreme position is the amplitude of a vibrating body. Okay, so this should be clear. Then we will come to know how is amplitude related to loudness. This should be clear to all. Amplitude is the maximum distance covered by a vibrating body from its mean position. It remains the same in case of oscillation, also the same definition is there. In case of a vibration also it is the same. In case of a wave also it is the same. Wave and vibration is the same. Okay, sound travels in the form of waves. Now what is amplitude? Again the same thing. The maximum displacement or the maximum distance covered by a vibrating body from its mean position is called the amplitude. Okay, as you can see, now the waves are going up and down. So on the top also the amplitude is there, that is the extreme position, and the bottom also. So amplitude, both the waves will remain the same because they are the two extreme positions. First extreme on the top and second extreme at the bottom. Okay, so larger the amplitude is, the louder the sound will become. This now we will see how. See, loudness, the factors on which the loudness of a sound depends. There are basically three factors. Three factors are there on which the loudness of a sound depends. The first and the very important one is the amplitude. Just now let us recall what we have learned. What is the amplitude? Amplitude is the maximum displacement of a vibrating body from its mean position. Okay, so if the displacement is more, that means if the vibrating body is going farther away from its mean position, what will happen? The amplitude will increase and so does the loudness. Clear? The loudness will also increase as the amplitude goes on increasing. If we put it in this technical terms, actually loudness is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude. Now what do you mean by directly proportional? Is both the quantities are dependent on each other. If you increase one, the other also will increase. If you decrease the first, other also will be decreased. Okay, this is what is meant by directly proportional. So loudness is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude. For example, if you increase amplitude by 2 meters, the loudness will increase by 4 decibel. If you increase amplitude by 4 meters, the loudness will increase by twice it, that's 8 decibels. So how, as and when you increase the amplitude, the loudness will increase its twice. It will become twice. Okay, so this is how amplitude is related to loudness. As this vibrating body goes farther away from the mean position, that means in this case the wave, as the wave becomes larger, the amplitude increases and so does the loudness. In the first wave you can see that the extreme position was very less, and so the loudness was less, and as the amplitude was less, loudness also was less. In the second one you can see that because the wave is larger, okay, although both are having the same 3 or 4 loops only in both the cases, but in the second case the loop is larger, okay, up and down both the ways. So the amplitude is more and therefore the loudness of the sound is also more. Understood all of you? In these waves you can compare and see that if the louder the sound is, the amplitude has to be larger than the another one where the amplitude is lesser. Okay, this is the first factor on which the loudness of a sound depends. The second factor is if the vibrating body, for example, is having a larger area, like drums, right? If the area of a vibrating body is larger, what will happen? The loudness of the sound also will increase. For example, drums. If you have a very small drum, like you had during your march band practices, the smaller the drum is, the feeble the sound is. And if you have a very large drums, that we have so many in our school, if you use a very large drum, the sound produced will also be very, very loud. Okay, so the second factor on which the loudness of a sound depends is the area of the vibrating body. If the area is less, the loudness also is less, the sound will be feeble, and if the area is more, loudness will be more and the volume of the sound will increase. Okay, this is the second factor on which the loudness of a sound depends. You can see in these three cases the drums will produce the loudest sound as the area is larger. Now, third factor on which the loudness of a sound depends is the distance between the receiver and the source of sound. For example, you are having the music system inside inside one of your rooms. If you sit there, you are able to hear a very blasting sound of the music. As you go farther outside in your hall, in the next room, the sound becomes less. The loudness becomes less. So if you increase the distance between the receiver and the source of sound, the loudness of a sound also keeps on decreasing. The loudness of a sound, the sound becomes feeble. It becomes very less loud. Okay, so increasing the volume and decreasing the volume, as I told you, is the same. So if you are away from the source of sound, what will happen is, as you increase the distance between the source and the receiver, the loudness of the sound keeps on decreasing. Okay, the sound keeps on becoming feeble. Understood, all of you? So these are the three factors on which the loudness of a sound depends. As you can see in the picture also, the third factor, in the second case, you can see that the speaker here, as the distance increases, what happens? In the first case, it was the loudness of the sound was 90 decibel. In the last one, as the distance keeps on increasing, the loudness of the sound becomes 78 decibel. And this first picture also, the horn of the vehicle was blowing, and when the man was near, it could hear a loud sound. As the distance between the two kept on increasing, the sound keeps on becoming feeble. You also have experienced this. If you go near the source of the sound, the loudness becomes more. If you go away from it, the loudness becomes less. So these are the three factors on which the loudness of a sound depends. First is the amplitude of a vibrating body. The second is the surface area of the vibrating body. And third is the distance between the source of sound and the receiver. Okay, so let us summarize what we have learned today. We have learned the definition of loudness, the unit of loudness, and the relation between loudness and amplitude. How are these two related? Loudness is directly proportional to twice the amplitude. Okay, and the three factors on which the loudness of a sound depends. I hope you understood what I tried to explain in today's class. Please go through the video very carefully. Read about loudness in the books, right? If you have any problems, you can ask in the online classes. Okay, take care of yourself. Stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye for now.